Trump for inciting violent insurrection against Congress on January 6th. It was the hardest thing I've ever been asked to do professionally, at the most difficult time I've ever experienced personally. But the assignment became, paradoxically, a salvation and sustenance for me, a pathway back to the land of the living, and a fountain of hope that renewed and strengthened my radical faith in democracy, the system of beliefs and practices that upholds the equal rights of the individual and demands that we all work together to take care of our common inheritance. Speaker Pelosi's invitation forced me to draw upon the deepest springs of meaning and clarity I have in life, the love of my 3 children and my wife, Sarah, the wisdom of my late parents, Tommy's remarkable political values, the strength of my siblings, the dreams and fears of my childhood, the insight of my teachers and creativity of my students, the inextinguishable resiliency and solidarity of my Maryland constituents, the genius of my political and academic colleagues, the vision of my mentors, and boundless generosity of my friends, the amazing constancy of my staff, and the moral courage of my fellow citizens, past and present. These things inspired me to make a case not just against a savagely corrupt president, but for American constitutional democracy itself. In American history, there have been just 4 presidential impeachment trials in the U.S. Senate, of President Andrew Johnson, of President Bill Clinton, and of President Donald Trump in 2020 for pressuring a foreign leader to interfere in our presidential election, and then again in 2021 for inciting a violent insurrection against Congress to block and overthrow the counting of electoral college votes. The bipartisan votes to impeach and convict Donald Trump in 2021, a vote of 232 to 197 to impeach in the House, and of 57 to 43 to convict in the Senate, marked the most sweeping bipartisan votes against a president for committing high crimes and misdemeanors in the history of the United States. The House impeachment vote on January 13th, 2021, and the Senate trial, which ended a month later on February 13th, 2021, together constituted an episode of passionate democratic lucidity and a sweeping rejection of violent authoritarianism. But ultimately, this is not a book about Donald Trump. Quite the opposite. It is about the kind of people whose dreams and work have allowed us to survive Donald Trump and his sinister incitement of racism and hatred among Americans who feel displaced and threatened by the uprooting of America's racial caste system. Within this book, you will find citizen activists, public servants, and seriously engaged political leaders, people who are democratic heroes and constitutional patriots of different political parties. You will find young moral visionaries like Tommy Raskin and change agents like his remarkable sisters, Tabitha and Hannah, and their mom, Sarah, whom I met long ago in a constitutional law class taught by Lawrence Tribe, another luminous hero of my book. You will find great democratic freedom fighters like Bob Moses, Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, Marcus Raskin, Judith Shklar, Michael Anderson, Timothy Snyder, Jim Clyburn, and Julian Bond, all the fine impeachment managers, and so many other colleagues. You'll find brave officers Harry Dunn, Michael Fanone, Eugene Goodman, Daniel Hodges, Aquilino Gonell, and all the other men and women in blue who risked and sometimes gave life and limb in the bitter, protracted, hand-to-hand trial by combat, as Rudy Giuliani eagerly described what was to come a few hours before it happened at the Capitol. The fearless at-large representative from Wyoming, Liz Cheney, an uncompromising partisan of the Constitution, our stunningly compassionate president, Joe Biden, and of course the indomitable Nancy Pelosi, whose patriotic love for our country and our people is a force of nature that future generations of Americans will marvel at and celebrate long after we are all gone. These democratic heroes, people who rise up to resist and oppose tyrants and fortify their communities against them, are not larger.